All right, so very important ethical question here. What's going on here? So the abortifacient birth control pill, which we have covered on this channel here, is it ethical? Well, it's clearly unethical, right? So this is what we're talking about here, and the people cannot accept. I've talked to some people; they just cannot accept this, and they must talk about something else. I had one guy telling me it's too much information. Yeah, it's too much information. Well, it's not. Your mind just cannot accept the fact that your wife has been taking this, and your child has died and all that stuff. Right? It's a deadly secret. I don't know what it is. It's a terrible thing. Right? What is it? It's an abortifacient birth control pill, just a normal birth control pill, right? That causes the early embryo, the developing human, to die before implantation. Very, very important here. This will cause a death, right? Okay. So the hypothetical, non-abortive. The question is, let's say for example, there's a truly non-abortifacient birth control. Let's say for example, Dr. Michelle Dow and the likes of these, you know, so-called doctors were to prescribe something that is truly non-abortifacient. Let's say, for example, goes beyond the premise of, yeah, this is really a non-abortifacient, but it's an abortifacient, right? So basically what Dr. Michelle Dow is saying every time she's writing this prescription is, yeah, it's a non-abortifacient birth control pill. And because she's lying to change the definition of pregnancy and all this stuff, which is implied that it is a non-abortifacient birth control. It's 100%. That is the implication. Okay. But let's say, for example, hypothetically speaking, that it's not, but if it were a non-abortifacient birth control pill, would that be unethical, right? So number two here, the hypothetical non-abortifacient birth control, which would truly prevent conception from ever happening, which is not what we see here. Okay, let's look at the definition for the word ethics. What does it mean, ethics? So ethics is the study of what is right or wrong in human behavior. Okay, often based on principles of justice, human dignity, and the good of individuals and society. In the pro-life framework, the core of ethical principle is the inherent dignity and the right to life of every human being from the moment of conception. And from the moment of conception, I mean, there's no justifiable reason, and it is in the constitution of the country that I am in here, to strive away from. Right? There's no reason. The only reason that somebody would say something else would be, because they're lunatics and they want to kill the humanity, the baby. Right? It's frightening. Why abortifacient birth control is clearly unethical. Okay, so there's no mistaking. Right? Okay, so an abortifacient drug directly ends the life of a newly conceived human being. This is not prevention, but destruction. Okay, the zygote, the morula, the blastocyst is not a potential human. He or she is already a living human at the earliest stage. Okay, to knowingly cause the death is ethically equivalent to abortion, okay, even if it happens at a very early stage and is invisible in nature. For example, if it happens very early and invisibly, you cannot see it happening, right? You cannot actually see the face of the baby you're murdering, right? So of course she's a murderess, right? This is a terrible, terrible crime, right? This is literally the greatest crime imaginable. Okay, so now the question is, would non-abortifacient birth control be ethical, right? So this is where the debate sharpens, right? If a drug could truly prevent conception without ever allowing a zygote to form, it would not directly kill a human life. Okay, so that's what we don't have here, right? This is what we don't actually have. We don't actually have that, right? From that perspective, it avoids the gravest ethical violation. Yet, it still raises ethical concerns. Okay, so is it better? Well, let's see. Frustrating the natural end of sex. One argument is that human sexuality has two natural purposes: unity of spouses and openness to life. Okay. A non-abortifacient contraception deliberately frustrates the procreative aspect, which many ethicists, especially Catholic moral theologians, consider intrinsically disordered, right? And I'm certainly not a Roman Catholic here. Catholicism has been a pro-life organization, but I'm nowhere near a Catholic. I'm an ex-Catholic. I certainly was brought in Catholic, but then I just read the New Testament Christianity, and I'm no longer a Catholic, but any kind of Christian. Let's change it as a Christian because it's very, very different. Um, So the Christian theologists, or any kind of person that is not a lunatic would that argument would be put forth by somebody who's not interested in killing, right? So the culture of sterility, right? This is, getting on a little bit of the creepy side. Widespread contraception, even if non-abortifacient, encourages a mindset where children are seen as optional, inconvenient, or a burden. That cultural shift erodes respect for life and often leads historically to abortion when contraception fails. Could be uh, better versus good. It is better ethically to prevent conception than to destroy a conceived human, but better does not necessarily mean good. Non-abortifacient contraception could be less grave, but it still falls short of the highest ethical good, the openness to life, right? So and then you say, well, I'm poor or whatever, I can't afford. We're not talking about that. We're just talking about the ethics of this. So if it could be a non-abortifacient birth control method, right? Is that ethical, right? So the case summary would be abortifacient birth control is always unethical because it directly kills a developing human, right? So this is what the whole point of this channel is all about, right? This is not just it's a criminal, it's a criminal act, but it's also medically, as somebody who would be a practitioner of medical science would what should you do? Is this ethical, right? And the answer is most certainly not. So non-abortifacient contraception would be would be less unethical, right? Less unethical, since no human life is destroyed, but it could still be considered morally problematic because it closes off the possibility of life and reshapes society's view of children. In other words, preventing a life is not as grave as killing one, but the most ethical stance is still to welcome life rather than to block it. Non-abortifacient birth control will still be unethical, though it is less gravely unethical than abortifacient birth control because it rejects the natural openness to life. So the question now is the use of non-abortifacient birth control ethical? Okay, and the answer is no. Right? The use of non-abortifacient birth control is not ethical. While it avoids the direct killing of a developing human, right, as occurs with abortifacient methods, right, it still deliberately frustrates the natural purpose of the sexual act, the openness to the creation of new life, and thus remains morally wrong, though less gravely so than abortifacient birth control. Okay, so the point is here, right, this is the final nail in the coffin, right? So um there's no debate anymore, right? Any type of birth control is unethical, right? We're living in the year 2025. I don't care which year you're in, 2125, 2225, 2325. Hopefully this video will survive and we'll see our grave error, and hopefully the next generation will not succumb to the loud jibber jabber from the left, right? The leftists who are so interested in not talking about these ethics and morality debates and everything. That they're not interested in that. Their only interest is to kill, kill, kill. Right, that's really what's happening here, and they're very, very interested in that and protecting their right to kill. It's never right; it's a decriminalized act. But who's to pay for all this? We are all, but the people that actually did pay the ultimate price was those who've had their bodies completely destroyed, the developing humans in the womb. So the embryo. You're telling me an embryo is just as much as a human? Yes, absolutely, 100%. Right? To suggest otherwise would be false and shameful. Right? Why would you suggest otherwise? Right? Why would you even begin to suggest otherwise? It's clearly false and is clearly right. So anyway, but the ethical question here. Let's go back here. What is the question? Is the use of non-abortifacient birth control ethical? Right. But so abortifacient birth control is clearly unethical. But this here is not. You know what's not unethical? Abstinence. Right. Abstinence. Right. That is a naturally this is a naturally occurring thing, right? Abstinence is a real thing. It actually works. Yeah. All right. I'll see you.